stack total. This is a good chance for us to remind you about verification futures. We had a very successful verification futures last year in Reading, where we had over 300 people. There's actually 200 people on site in Reading, so it's quite a good networking event. Involved over 100 organisations in 21 different countries, 100 people remotely. And we're expanding that this week, calling it European Verification Week. And it's going to be in Windsor, France and Germany. And Harry Foster is going to be the keynote again. Harry Foster from Mentor is going to be our keynote. And he's just released his abstract. So if you go to our website, you'll see it on there.
So I'm Olivier Allaire. I'm part of the functional verification group within ST, which is a central group in charge of deploying verification methodologies to ST and ST Ericsson. So our group is also in charge to enable high communication between groups in order to make sure that the best practices are deployed from one team to the other and so on. And we also contribute directly in key projects by being involved in the verification of this key project and in deploying new technologies. And graph-based or test generation is definitely one of them. So my goal today was just to describe you what is our perception of graph-based verification, test generation, and what is the value that we see in there, and give you an overview on how it has been deployed so far within ST. So a few words about test generation. This is tools that we have seen emerging on the market, so something like 6 years ago, in a trend that was called at that time Intelligent Test Bench. There are many different names that are getting around for graph-based or test generation. We also hear algorithmic or intelligent test generation, as well as scenario model-based test generation. So we consider all of these techniques to be the same and covering the same need. So as we have heard today, we have seen two different tools presented that are using more or less the same approach with different goals. Both Adnan and Stefan mentioned and give us more details about what they are doing. And we are also looking at new generation tools that are currently incubating. And unfortunately, I cannot tell you more about that so far, but definitely there is a trend in the EDA to cover more widely this kind of area. Just about principles, so this is a very high-level overview of how we conceive test generation. So all of that starts with a modeling of the scenario space. On purpose, I don't call that a graph because there are many possible ways to describe the scenario state space. Graph is one of them. We have seen also some other possibilities around. Then starting from the list or model of all the possible scenarios, the goal is to add constraints and to bring up some randomization in order to reduce the space and be able to focus on specific cases that are of interest for us. Starting from this selection of a scenario, we target the generation of tests that can be targeting different languages, different platforms. As we are going to see later in this talk, we have been targeting very heterogeneous platforms. And also we can do it on the fly or in pre-generation by pre-generating the tests. So this is a very high-level overview on how we do conceive test generation at ST. About the first tools model, and this has been described both by Stefan and Adnan, the first kind of use of graph-based or verification is to plug it on top of a constraint-driven random test bench that can be either Specman or System Verilog, where we replace more or less the sequence driver by something more powerful that are the graphs. The beauty of that is that you keep your same environment to cover to cover the existing sequence. You just need to replace at the sequence level. Then you're going to ask me why do we do that? One of the main reasons we have seen and main interest for that is that using exactly the same sequences to drive verification IPs in an IP test bench, you are also able, by just changing the leaf nodes, to generate C code that are going to run on any of your software-centric environment. So in other words, instead of driving transactions on an AXI or HB bus, you can simply generate C code that is going to do the exact same behavior, but running on the so vertical reuse is definitely one of the key factors that we were willing to deploy when we started the deployment of this kind of tool. Then there is the SOC level approach that can or not leverage the IP graphs. So the goal here is to use a kind of scenario driver that is going to be a selection of the possible paths within your system, and that is going to both generate the C program that is going to drive your test bench with running the compiled code to the CPU, but that will also be able to drive the various VIP that you have in your system. So there are several ways to do that. I won't enter into the details. One of the main approach we are using in ST is to memory map the control of the VIP in virtual addresses, what we call more virtual register. So the C code that we generate is directly able to drive the control of the VIP. So what we have done in ST, we have been looking at this kind of technology since 4 years, when we started our first evaluation of the available tools on the market at that time. So far, we have been running both on subsystem and system on chips. On subsystem, we have been applying it to three different IPs or subsystems. Each of them had very different test bench. First one was a Specman-based E environment. Second one was a System Verilog UVM1. And the last one is a System C software-centric platform on which it is almost like a SOC level environment when you run C code that is exercising the full system. So all these three approaches has been used. It has shown to be very successful at modeling the scenario space, but also to enable a good communication between the various stakeholders, because it's much more easy to share a graph showing the scenario that you are doing rather than sharing sequences that only verification engineers can understand. We have done also some reuse at SOC level, not for the system, all the tests so far, but the flow is definitely running and has been used to enable vertical reuse. Then on system side, we have three different systems that has been exposed to this kind of tools with very promising results. It's not yet widely deployed into production, but it is starting to be incrementally adopted, mostly because people are very cautious about new tools, especially when facing very strong project schedule. But there is an incremental adoption. So how it is often done is that people start to develop models on the parts that are quite weak in their system and progressively build more and more models in order to cover more and more use cases at system level. The main issues that we have seen is that it requires, if you generate C, it requires pre-existing low-level drivers, because at the end the graph will drive these functions that are going to make the abstraction layer from the hardware. And this is a schedule problem because it comes then very late in the flow. And we have seen very easy generation of new tests and some new metrics, some introduction of functional coverage metric at system level, which was never the case. So this is a summary of the value we see in graph-based or test generation techniques. The first one is efficiency of verification. because the modeling of the scenario are much easier than writing C-test by hand or modeling sequences in hardware verification languages. And at the end, it reduced drastically the amount of code you need to write because it's very well factorized and all the configuration capabilities are directly embedded into the model. Second main value we see is the quality of verification. This is a very good way to introduce some level of random at SOC level. I would say some controlled randomness at SOC level, which is something that allows to cover some use cases that were not necessarily think of by engineers. It allows also composition of the various IPs by chaining the data flows between IPs. Typically, if you have a video stream that you read on a hard disk drive through a USB, then you put it with a DMA into the memory, then you decode it using a hardware decoder and display it finally with a display controller. This is the kind of data flow that when you build the various pieces of the components, it's very easy to leverage this kind of scenario model to build the complete chaining of this data flow through the system. And then you can also very easily do things in parallel by enabling synchronization of the various threads that you have in your system, just to make some more stress and make sure that your various use cases that are running in parallel are properly verified even before silicon. Another key criteria for adoption of this kind of tool is the fact that it's non-intrusive. So as soon as people were writing before C code by hand, you can very simply convince them that using a tool to generate something that was previously handwritten is very smooth in the flow, because you don't need to change anything in your platform. You just have a way to automatically generate it. And by the way, this is true today for most of the tools that we are introducing. It is very a key criteria to be very to keep non-intrusive in the current flows. In terms of reuse, so we have proven and we have enjoyed both vertical reuse by enabling the IP2SOC reuse as I mentioned previously, but also from SOC to SOC where it is graphs and scenario models are a very good way to abstract the configurability of the IPs that are underlying. Coverage closure, as was mentioned by both Adnan and Stefan as well, graph has its own implicit metric, and we are able to leverage this metric, and also to have a quicker coverage closure by making sure that there is no redundant tests that are generated. And the last one, as I already mentioned, is to enable knowledge sharing between stakeholders and the verification, architects, software developers, designers. We have here a very good way to have a graphical mean to exchange knowledge about the scenario we are on. So in conclusion, we have seen in ST a lot of value from this kind of technologies by enabling reuse, by having an easy way to manage parallelism, composition of scenarios and data flows, and it's a very good way to explore the possible states and scenarios in the system. But still, there are many obstacles ahead of us that slow down the deployment in the past years. Typically, as I mentioned, we need the basic drivers in order to compose various use cases in the system. So this is a prerequisite that often comes very late in the schedule. So that there is some adoptions, incremental way to refine plannings in order to make this possible. And this is linked to a mindset change, because we need to convince people internally that using this kind of tools will at the end improve their schedule. Introduction of random is nice. It generates a lot of things that you did not think of, but the drawback of that, as for IP verification, is that it generates things that you don't know upfront, and that makes the debug much more complex than if you had written the test by hand yourself. Again, this is the same kind of problem than for IP. By being able to generate more tests, we may face, and we are facing, some explosion of the runtime because we are able to generate more tests easily. So we need to run much more tests than what has been previously handwritten. And obviously, computers are much better at generating more things than humans. So we have many tests, and we need to mitigate this by ensuring the right methodology is in place, not to make too much redundant things. This is linked to the question that was raised previously about standards. So there is no standard yet, and this is seen as, for many project teams, as a big obstacle to start modeling something for specific and proprietary tools. And my final point would be that we hope that evolution of the tools or new generation tools will help us mitigate this issue, because we see definitely a lot of promising results and potential in this technology. And now I'm open for any question you may want to ask.
Thank you very much, Olivier. That was very clear and a very good user study. There's no questions from Bristol, so we'll go across to Cambridge.
So I think the question was, what type of bugs are you finding with this approach?
We found mostly bugs that are related to the behavior of IP, where we put them together. Typically, if you chain the data flow between IPs, it ensures that the assumptions that are made by some of the blocks are properly fulfilled by the other one. So this is one category of bug we found. I would say these are the main ones. Performances also is something we expect to find bugs, but we did not yet, because this requires full modeling of the system, and in most of the cases we are not yet at this stage.
Any more questions, Brian?
Sorry, there was a follow-up question. Have you found any bugs in the low-level drivers?
Yes, sure. Sure, this is a very good way to verify also the low-level drivers. Typically, we found up some drivers that were writing. As you know, we are running barebone machines, so there is no operating system and memory protections, and we have faced some issues where we found that under certain circumstances, the underlying driver was writing in another place in the memory, which was the program space.
Okay, there's no more questions from Bristol, and I think in the interest of time, I think we're just 5 minutes over, which isn't too bad given the number of questions we had. So it just remains to thank our 3 speakers: Stefan from Cambridge, Adnan from Bangalore, and Olivier from Grenoble. Thank you very much. And we'll send out an email regarding the location of the slides that you can pick up afterwards, and we'll let you know when the next one is. Thank you very much.